Hey folks, my name is Kevin and it's time for a little bit more knife nerdery, and this is an unboxing of a lot of knives. This is not a big box, but my god is it dense. This is also way overdue. My friend Stefan sent these to me, and thank you so much for both lending these my way, but also for your patience. I should have gotten this out way longer. And the point where I honestly don't remember what all he put in this box. I just remember that it's a lot of Laconicos and then something from Jens Onso. And so I brought out all of my Laconicos and we're going to see how many Laconicos we can get on the screen at a given time. Let's use a Laconico knife. This is the Monterey Bay Knives Slayback, one of my absolute favorite just knives in general, but one of my favorite box opening knives to open this up. I'm going to try and preserve this as well as I can so I can use this to send it back to him. Oh, he left all the pouches in. That's nice. So I know there are more than 3 knives in here, so presumably there are several per pouch. Let's see. I don't know what order to do these in. Sure. Okay. So right off the bat, we have a Laconico. This is... What is this? This is the Artisan Cutlery Sirius. Is this not focusing? Did I do bad? Do I need to do something to change this? Here, give me a second. I'm going to try and fix this. Okay, we are back and we are focusing. So this is the Artisan Cutlery Sirius, and this is I think Ray Laconico's second collaboration with Artisan. He did the Centauri with them, and that was a reasonably expensive knife. So with the Sirius, he was attempting to do a budget knife, and this is a true budget knife. I think this is coming in at $70, and this one's in G10 and AR RPM 9. Now you can get versions of this that are in, I think, S30V, maybe S35, and in stuff like Titanium, but this is coming in at that full true budget mark. And you know, it's one of those things where I love that he works with a lot of different folks. You can get like the Kaiser Yorkie is through Kaiser, and this is through Artisan, and he has his own company with Monterey Bay Knives. And so I love that you can kind of get in at Laconico at a bunch of different price points. And so one of the things that I know Stefan was trying to do, and the reason why I was really excited, and the whole reason he sent me these, is because it's kind of cool to be able to do like a Laconico tasting flight where you get to see what Laconico is like at different price points and how do they compare. And so yeah, this is my first time experiencing a budget Laconico. And let's see the action. Okay, no, wait, that was actually really good. Ooh, I already don't like this. I don't like undeploying it. Unlocking it. Wow, that is really, really nice, snappy action. Okay, this is a front flipper. Probably shouldn't have started with the reach around, but that worked really fine. Let's try this as a regular front flipper. Yeah, okay, that works really nice. I am hating unlocking this every single time. I'll talk about that in just a second. Wow, that works really, really good. Okay, so we've got a kind of a spear pointy blade with a swedge at the top. And this looks like roughly 0.12, no, maybe a little under 0.15, something like that, blade stock. And so yeah, this is actually going to be a reasonably good slicer. It's not hollow ground or anything like that. It doesn't look like it's coming super thin behind the edge. Partly the reason why I think that is because look at the size of this bevel. This is also a large bevel usually means that it's not super thin behind the edge, because if you lay it back to 15 to 17 degrees or something like that, you're going to get a really wide bevel. This looks like an aftermarket edge. I'm guessing this is something that Stefan or someone that he bought this off of put on, because I can't imagine you're going to get a mirrory edge like that on a budget knife. But it's really pretty cool to see that this is that AR RPM 9 steel that he did. It's cool to see that it can take on that kind of nice looking edge. How does this fall? Straight to my nail. And you can see that it's falling and hitting on this spot right here where there is some jimping. And that is not the flipper tab, so that's cool. This jimping up here ends up down here. It kind of works. It's not super effective jimping. I don't know about that. But my point being is that it falls to my nail and lands there. So it's not like the blade is hitting me. And then Oh, okay. So that closes really, really nice. One of the reasons why I wanted to see these is because I had experienced this something with, when I got this one, I noticed a trend and I started asking everyone else. I've only ever had 2 knives made by Artisan before. This is the Artisan Cutlery Small Arian. It's a collaboration and design by Cerberus Knives. And this is the Dylan Mallory Forest, and this is OEM'd by Artisan. And both of these knives have something in common that I don't like. And it's this there's this bump feeling right here. And some people will describe this as a grittiness, and some people will describe this as being able to feel the bearings. I know I did in my unboxing. When I took this apart and looked at it, I noticed that it's not that there's like an uneven track or that there's even like roughness. There's like dimples in it. And it really looks so much to me like the ceramic detent balls have just been pressed too hard into the liners in one specific spot. And the coincidence is that both of these had it in the exact same spot. There's one right here at about the 90-degree angle bit, right there in the path of travel. Same thing, right there. And so I started asking around, and a bunch of people had that exact same experience with Artisan knives. And so one of the things I wanted to see is whether or not it was on this, but no, that there is none. Actually, this feels fantastic. Is this on stock bearings? Because wow. I'm used to Artisan knives being both in my hands and talked about as having kind of ratchety feeling bearings where you can feel them move. And this is tremendously smooth. And it feels very stable this whole way. This is, yeah, wow. Wow, that is really nice and smooth. I'll have to check with him and make sure that those are in fact stock bearings. That's kind of incredible. Okay, I mentioned this a couple of times. I hate this. I hate this. There is no recession whatsoever on the to access to this lock bar except for this tiny little dimple where this is coming in. And you can see the actual like amount of space you have here is extremely small. And then look at this. This is like a mirrored, rounded off, super smooth. There's no grip right here. So I'm just sliding right off. So trying to get in here is really hard to do. Like the best thing I can do is kind of wedge the tip of my finger into this thumb stud hole, and then I can push it over. But that's only happening because I have relatively thin fingers in this dimension. So I think this would be really tough for someone with much bigger fingers. Also, you can see what was happening there. My finger is stopping that front flipper from closing. It was going like this and getting caught on it. And that's something that you'll find on any knife that has a front flipper of this variety if it sticks out really large. I'm noticing right off the bat that this one of the things that makes this feel really budgety, saying like what happens when you buy in at a lower price point, is that these edges all feel, yeah, this feels really, really sharp. And so here, what I mean by that is like, I don't know who makes Monterey Bay knives. They don't say who their OEMs are, and it varies from knife to knife. But even though this is not like, there's no like crowning or anything here, you can see there's this very subtle chamfer along the edge. It's the part that makes it glow right there. And even if I come up here, do you see how there's this, like how that line right there glows a little bit more? That's because even though this is a relatively hard edge, there's a very subtle rounding off that's happening that makes it not super scrapey. And on a $70 knife, you don't get that. This is a true crisp, sharp edge, and it is definitely kind of scrapey, which is ironic, of course, then that this is so not sharp down here. This is so exceptionally rounded here and so not there. If they traded places, this would be a lot easier to open up. Okay, let's talk about what else could be sharp on this. The jimping is bad. Yeah, that's just bad. Okay. Yeah, this is the kind of jimping that is ineffective. Now, luckily, it's not deep enough to be the kind of jimping I hate, that it presses in really hard, but this is definitely the kind of jimping that just doesn't have crisp edge, and so it's not really doing anything for me. But this is still easy to do entirely because of this flipper tab. Just the geometry of it. Look how big this is. I bet you this would work exactly as well if there was no jimping on it whatsoever, because all you're doing is pushing on this big wedge triangle thing here. Yeah. I don't know how to emulate it, but I'm pretty confident that would work just as well. So this is definitely one of those ones that's very different from, say, actually I still have this on my desk. This is like the Justin Lundquist designed Wii Eidolon that has just these tiny grip only type jimping. I think I might even have, no, I don't have any of the Peñas out right now, but the Peña has the same kind of concept where you're just relying on traction as you pull over. And this is the exact opposite. You're not getting any traction. You're not relying on it at all. It's just, you know, pure leverage. Yeah, what else would I want to talk about this? So yeah, classic Laconico fuller design. He puts on a lot of his knives. Here is that Slayback again. This is the flipper tab version and the double detent version. Yeah, same kind of fuller thing. He's very well known for. What else would I see? Oh, you know what? Yeah, so this wedge. Yeah, so I've talked in some videos about how if the blade comes all the way up to the top and sticks, I mean, the grind comes all the way up to the top, that you can sometimes get traction on there and press against the grind. This is the opposite. So rather than having the ability to press against this grind as if it were a ramp, instead you're sliding down this grind, and so you definitely can't flick it out like that. But it also means, yeah, this is definitely a one hand opening knife. It's almost, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's completely impossible for me to grip this. Let's see if I can do this. This is actually really hard to do too. There's no reverse thumb stud, and so you can't really grip here. You're not hitting the blade at all. And so I guess I can kind of like wedge my finger right there and then pull this out, but that's really not easy to do. So this is definitely a one-hand opening knife, and this detent is strong enough that I'm expecting it's going to be difficult to slow roll. Yeah, you see how it does that? So it's hard to slow roll a knife with a strong detent because the force of it opening means it's going to kind of pop out in front of your finger. And so you can kind of sometimes catch it. No, that's really kind of hard to do. So I think this is definitely a fast open and one-hand opening knife only. What's my final thoughts on this? Oh, actually, before I get to that, the clip. Ooh, pretty tight, but looks nice. And it's cool to be able to see milled tie clips that look nice on a budget knife. Hidden lanyard hole. That construction back here, it looks pretty similar to how this is done there. So yeah, my final thoughts on this is, yeah, honestly, if you're limited to the $70 price range, this is pretty nice. There are parts of it that I would change immediately. I don't like this jimping, and I really hate this lock bar. But there's also parts of this that are really pretty impressive. Like I said, this is one of the smoothest feeling budget knives I've felt. This feels great. And that is fantastic. I think that is like good. Like this is a good front flipper, but this is a fantastic thumb stud deployment. And so I think between those two, I think this is definitely more of a thumb studdy knife. Okay, let's move on and see what we got next. What else is in here? That I'm going to save to the end. It's the one oddball out. It's the only one that's not from Laconico. Okay. Yeah, we got two knives in here. Okay, what do we got? Okay, so this is the Ray Laconico designed drop cane, I believe. And this is something that was OEM'd by Wii Civivi, I believe. And this is kind of like a bigger, longer Yorkie. The Yorkie is a pretty small knife, and it's one of his most popular knives, but it was a flipper tab only knife, and it was like 2.75 inches, something like that. I think this one's going to be a big knife from the looks of it, maybe more like 3.5, but it's also the same kind of like curve, clean swoop, very gentle. Honestly, it's kind of looks reminiscent of something like the old guard, but let's see how this action works. That was really nice. Ooh, that's nice and smooth. Wow, okay. So, yeah. Okay, that's really good. That's nice and smooth. It's a bit tight enough that it's not going to like free fall, but it's very easy to gently shake it home. This flipper tab, wow. So this flipper tab is exceptionally smooth. Wow. you can see that it's chamfered all around and there's no jimping on it whatsoever. And it's very kind of pointy. And I think from this side perspective, I don't think it needs to be pointy. Like it could kind of round back down on this side and not be concave here. And I think it would maybe look a little bit less like an odd, oh wow, Nick Shabazz always calls these pocket peckers, but look how much this looks like a bird right now. Like this is like a wing sticking off, there's the eyeball and there's his nose. Okay, I'm gonna stop on that. But anyway, I think they could have made this look less like a pocket pecker, but there's nothing sharp about it whatsoever. But it does mean that you are relying entirely on the fact that this sticks out enough that you have like leverage. There's no grip part aspect to it, but it works pretty darn well. So this blade profile is again kind of basically like the Yorkie, and it's I would say the kind of drop point that looks almost like a spear point. I think it's not quite a spear point in the sense that this doesn't come quite in line with this and it's not symmetric, but the entire knife kind of curves a little bit. It's kind of hard to say what would be a spear point on this. This is thicker blade stock for sure. I don't know what this is. Let me see if I can find that out real quick. Nope, I don't know what it is. And because this is from Drop, all their kind of websites down, and they sell on Amazon now, but I don't really see it. I guess I could just measure it because this looks thicker. What is this? Yeah, that's a thick boy. Okay, so 0.157. That means it's what, 4 millimeter blade stock. And yeah, that means it's thicker than I would want it to be. But, on a big knife like that, it kind of just feels like it's maybe scaling up. How's this feel in hand? Laconico is known for having really good ergonomics. And yeah, okay, yeah, that just feels... He has really good ergonomics because he just has neutral handles. They're really just kind of clean swoops. I think this one was... If I want to say it's like $170. So we've moved up there from the $70 price point to $170, and we've moved from Artisan to We. And yeah, everything about this feels a lot more finishing has gone into it. Like this is so smooth up here. It's not. It is kind of chamfered, but I would say I think this is actually radiused. And so what that means is that it's like a curve, a rounded arc coming from this flat to this. And so this is really smooth. It's almost like a crowned spine, but with a flat top. The blade finish on this is just a, that kind of satin finish that doesn't have very strong lines. It does hold fingerprints pretty well. Let's see if I can wipe some of those off. This is, I believe, an S35VN, so that's another thing. You move up the price point and you get better steel. AR RPM 9 is supposedly a pretty darn good budget steel in my experience. It's been fine, but S35 is certainly a higher end steel than that. Gonna have better edge retention and everything like that. We also get better lock bar access. So this is just a lot easier to get my finger in here, but it's still not gonna be the most easy ever. And it's again because Ray kind of is really adamant about having symmetric clean swoops. And so that's one of the things I was actually pleased to find over here on the mini old guard, that there is this recessed part right here that lets you get in. This is something I'm not used to finding on his knives, and so it's really nice to actually see it there. But this is, from my I have medium-sized glove hands. This is like relatively smaller hands. It's not hard to get in here. The firmness of this lock bar is pretty firm. And so that's part of why this is a tight close. I think if this had lighter lock bar pressure, this would probably be almost full free fall, because this is a heavy enough blade with the blade stock and it being long enough, and this is a smooth enough close that I think that if you didn't have heavy lock bar pressure, this would probably just fall free of its own volition, because that definitely falls very simply. What else do we got going on here? Pretty similar clip if you really think about it. If we look back over at this, we've got just a milled tie clip. The one thing is that this has internal screws, and that's actually pretty cool to see on a budget knife. This is much more similar to the clips that you'll find on MBK's knives. So this is Ray Laconico's own company, did at Sanford Owen. The big difference here is that Ray's clips, MBK's clips tend to always have this fuller in it that mirrors the fuller, but you can see that both of these knives don't have the fuller in the handle the same way that this and this did. But there's the fuller there. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I also have this. This is the MBK EZC. Yep, the EZC 1.5 in Micarta. I did swap out the clip on this one for a Civivi deep carry clip, and you can do it because one of my gripes with MBK's clips is that they are not deep carry, and you will find that these are, of course, not deep carry too. I would say that's probably equally not deep carry. Yep. Yep, 2 screws. Okay, so I think that this actually feels pretty on par in terms of quality level with this. And this is, I think, a more expensive knife. This one has a little bit cleaner rounding everywhere. This is like, there is a chamfer on this edge, but it's still kind of a hard corner. And so I find this one even more comfortable just because they've made that chamfer wider. But you can see this is like really nice curved. And so that's part of the reason why this fits really nicely in my hand, is that, yeah, it has nice contouring as you go along. So this is bigger knife than I would want, but it's honestly not bad at all. This is actually really pretty nice. I'm pretty pleased with this. Okay, what else do we got? Because I think the other one we have, yeah, okay. Yep. So this one is by Artisan Cutlery, and this one is by Drop effectively, but the OEM is We, and this one is full on We. So this is We branded and everything, and this is still a Ray Laconico design. We got our name right there, and this is the least I don't know, clean symmetry line Laconico of all of them, because look at these so far. You know, if I take every single one of these knives and put them out on the table, all of these have just clean straight swoops, and this is the first one to have this kind of like warble swoop, so that makes it stand out. But if we look back at these, we do have the same general form factor here. So this is a thumb stud and front flipper knife that has just kind of this blocky corners front flipper, but it comes down a lot smaller here. And so this kind of front flipper, by not sticking up as high and not sticking up above the top, is darn well better going to have better jimping, or else you're not going to have the traction you need, because you can't just push on this the same way. You need to be able to push upward, not just over. And so does it? Yep. Okay, there you go. So one of the things you get by moving up to a higher end knife is you get better jimping. So this has really good jimping. Yeah, okay. So what they're doing different between these two, the depth and the spacing is tremendously similar. And so at a glance, these look like the same kind of jimping. But do you see how the tops of these look smaller? And as I roll it, you can kind of see the light rolling over it. These are effectively rounded off. There's just no crisp edge. And on this, do you see how you can see like a clean surface here that has a sharp edge? And the light doesn't cascade over it the same way. There's a clean edge on that and a clean edge on this. And so this has nice traction. This is jimping that actually locks your finger in. I can't slide off it. This is jimping that does absolutely nothing. So, the other thing, the geometry of this is so fundamentally different. We get a flipper tab, a thumb stud on the back. Woo! Okay, so let's see what the action is on this like. I was holding it weird, so okay, yeah, that's nice. I want to say, honestly, this one has a more authoritative thwack that's actually really, really pleasant, but it's just because the detent is stronger. This is a kind of a light detent. That feels really, really good. Another thing that's different between these two knives is that this thumb stud is really far in. And what that means is that you have all of your motion is in this upward direction. It's really easy to just kind of flip up, and you're so tight into the pivot that you're getting this follow through the entire way. And so you can get a really forceful thwack on this. And the fact that this is a little bit further out, a little bit further down means just geometry wise, it's not gonna be quite as good at getting that kind of forceful thwack. How does this feel in the close? Feels great. Very smooth. That is nice and smooth. I do not love this lock bar axis. So again, we have very pretty limited lock bar access, and they did better. They did better over here. This is recessed compared to that. You can see this sticking out, but barely. And this is such a thin knife that this actual hole here is pretty small. Like this guy over here is just a thicker knife all around. And if we bring it over to that, that's a much, much, much thicker knife. Wow, yeah, so much thicker. And so this, I said, didn't have great access, but it's okay. But look at the amount of space between these and that. This one's so much narrower. So it's a darn good thing we have some amount of recession right here, but it's still, it's not that easy. This should be a little bit more recessed, like you find right here, in order to be able to press nicely on the side of the lock bar rather than pressing on the top of it. So it's not my favorite knife to unlock, but it's not hard. Okay, how does this work? I should do it this way first. I think it's gonna work well. Okay, yeah, works. Yep, so this works. This is the kind of thing where I can't just push up. Like I said, I have to push that direction. So you are relying on that jimping. This detent is light enough that I think you don't get a particularly snappy front flick with this. And I tend to find that I personally need front flippers to be a little bit more, I don't know. I need front flippers. I need a little more of a break-in time with front flippers for me to learn a new front flipper. It's just not as intuitive of a motion for my hands. And so I usually don't have a great front flipper action the very first time I open up a knife. So I think I'm going to learn in this one. This is a light enough detent that you can definitely do that. A lot of times, like I tried this over here, and this is such a hard detent that I have to push so much pressure on the side of my finger that doesn't have meat built up behind it that kind of sucks. And I can probably do it, but I hate it. No, I hate that. This is actually, let's see, how do people actually hold their in their hand when they do that? I don't know. I'm gonna stop trying to do that. Oh yeah, I forgot. You can reverse flick this, right? Oh, that works really, really well. Well, of course, now if I had to block it with my finger. Yeah, look at that. Oh, I love that. Blade shape wise, we've got the swedge back again. That's another thing he really likes to do. He likes to put a swedge on the top of a almost spear pointy knife. There's no swedge on that one. What else we got? Oh, you know what? One of the things, the reason why Stefan sent any of this stuff to me is, like, he sent all of this to me once we started talking about how cool it would be to do a Laconico lineup. But the reason why he started talking to me in the first place is because of the finishing on this knife. This is what's called an orange peel finish. And let me see if I can zoom in to give you a better look. Yeah, so this is called an orange peel finish, and they did a really nice one on this. There's a couple of different things that people call an orange peel finish, and the way that you achieve them is different depending on what kind you get. So if you, let me think. Oh, so I posted a video a long time ago now about the ProTech Malibu tie that I had, and it had an orange peel finish on the edges, and that's a very different kind of orange peel. It's the kind that looks more like kind of little like waves built up. This is the kind, but it still has that kind of textured quality to it. This kind of orange peel is way more uniform and looks more like the actual peel of an orange. The thing is both of these textures are created through friction. And this is the whole thing that spawned Stefan sending this to me in the first place, is a discussion about how you actually pull off that texture. Because it's not something that's machined in like some people might think. It's not like a milled process. Basically, the way that you make orange peeling is by friction that is, like, under other circumstances would be considered bad. And so basically what you do is you use like a wire wheel brush, or you use a sanding belt that's been kind of worn down, and you run it at a speed that you normally wouldn't run it at. And you're relying on the fact that metals like titanium have this kind of smearing capability that they'll do. They'll kind of gall up and smear as you apply too much friction to it. And so rather than wearing down and like cleanly grinding, like if you take a sanding belt that's just a little bit too worn out, instead of wearing off the material, you just kind of pull it. And that's actually what's going on here. This particular type, the kind that was on the Malibu, is more that second type where you get kind of like that pulled waves. This type is definitely done with a wire brush wheel. And by just running it over it, at a microscopic level, it's pulling those and kind of smearing those metal molecules around. And it gives you this like little tiny crests and falls that as when you zoom out, looks like a really kind of neat orange skin, the peel of an orange. And yeah, I think I wanted to talk about this because it is one of those things that's kind of a little bit like coveted in the knife modding community, but just exactly how do people pull that off. There are a lot of knife modders, folks like Lindy B and Richie Lou. Lindy Lou and Richie B, knife modders that are really happy to talk about their techniques because they're not protective of it. They know that they can do it better than other people, and they know that people are going to pay them to do it even if other folks can do it. So they're willing to talk. But a lot of folks were really, really protective for a long time. And so it's neat to actually be able to talk about the fact that this is how this is done, the fact that it's done with a wire wheel. And one of the reasons why people like it is because it kind of gives you a similar finish to like a glass bead blast finish, but with just a stronger amount of texture. It also looks a lot similar as a result to like a Zerk blast or Zerblast finish, because a zirconium blast finish is using the same kind of technique as a bead blast finish, but with zirconium pellets instead of glass pellets. And so you get a slightly more aggressive texture. And so if you take a bead blast and make it slightly more aggressive, you get something that sure as heck looks a lot like an orange peel. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can get that technique. But like I said, the general idea is you use friction. So, okay, so this is also very contoured. It's just a much thinner knife. Yeah. So like I said before, you get kind of more rounding everywhere. This one had an actual radiused edge. This one does not, but this one does have what I described elsewhere as that slight chamfer right there. That very thin line along the edge that glows a little bit more is what makes this not so scrapey as you get over here. Yeah, that's very scrapey. Okay, so I think these are all of the Laconicos. And so let's do one last every Laconico on the board and line them up in order of like money. So I think we are doing, I think it's maybe like this. Is this right? I think this is the cheapest. This is about $70. This is the next cheapest. I think it's about 130. This is the next one up. I think it's about 160. Then these ones were both like 180 maybe. And this one is, I think, like 210. And this one is, I think, like 225. And so, yeah, as you get up in the price point, you get better materials, you get better finishing and chamfering everywhere. You get better ergonomics, but honestly, the ergonomics on these are pretty darn good across the board, but you do get things like better lock bar access. You get significantly better jimping. I didn't talk about this guy very much, but this has just like superb jimping. This is just so good. It's so crisp and it works so freaking well. Yeah, this has been really freaking cool. And we're going to then cut to one last knife because there is another guy in here and it's unrelated to any of this. So give me a second to put these away and I'll be right back. JK, fake out. So I decided that it doesn't really make sense to spend all of this time talking about a Laconico lineup and then at the very last minute include a knife from a totally different maker. So I'm just going to save that for another video. But I got to talking to Stefan after this and talking to him about this whole thing and all the differences I was noticing between everything. And we noticed something that I hadn't pointed out earlier. I did, I believe, mention that there's a deep carry clip on this, and that's done really, really well. But it's a deep carry clip on a Laconico knife. That doesn't exist anywhere else. That hadn't occurred to me in my head before, that this is literally the only one. Okay, sure, let's look at these. Shallow carry, shallow carry. To be fair, those are the same shallow carry, shallow carry, shallow carry, shallow carry. I cheated and put a Civivi clip on this, but this came looking just like that, shallow carry. And I started looking back at every other Laconico design that I've ever seen. I looked at the Kaiser Yorkie and the liner lock version and the Ursa and the Intrepid and the Gemini and the milled tie version, clip version of the Gemini and the Alliance Easy-E, and literally every Laconico knife I've ever seen, including all of the customs I've ever seen, have a shallow carry clip. I think the man just hates deep carry clips and by extension, my happiness. But somehow this made it. Now I was able to find just one other knife, one other Laconico knife in all of my searching that has a deep carry clip. And it is a custom knife that he made from 2013, part of one of his slim EDCs, that knife that kind of made him famous. And it is not just a deep carry clip, but it's mounted up here. It's a tip up deep carry clip. And oh my God, it's like, that's a combination that I cannot settle for, because deep carries in general come up high enough that they are not ergonomically great. And then you put it at the top and that's just gotta feel awful. Okay, anyway, I think this very well might be the only production and one of the only ever Laconico knives to ever have a deep carry clip. And so how did that happen? What like leverage did we have over Ray to make him submit and put a deep carry clip for the first time ever on a knife? Okay. Anyway, thank you for listening to this rambling. Thank you to Stefan for sending these to me and just for your incredible amount of patience. Stefan sent these to me a while ago, and it took me a long time to get to these, in part because he was out of the country for a while, but in part just because I just got behind and forgot. And so huge thank you to Stefan for sending these my way. And like I said, for the patience. Thank you all for your patience surviving through this incredibly long video. And thank you all for watching. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. This has been fascinating. I love you, Ray. Despite your clip preferences, you're still one of my absolute favorite designers. Okay. Have a nice day, and I'll check you next time.